Good morning. Do you all speak Italian? Anyway, thank you for being here today. And most of all, thank you to my colleague, Ms. Nicolai. I have to say, I'm really happy I could organize this workshop, especially because I think this is a topical moment, a very important one, not only for cooperation, but mostly for integration of the penal judiciary systems. Of course, I'm very proud to participate today to this conference, especially because at the last Strasbourg plenary session of the 25th of October, the European Parliament has approved with a very wide majority my resolution on organized crime. It was a report I wrote about organized crime and different sorts of mafias, and a very large majority approved this document with 584 votes. This is a report which has been considered, which has been studied by all the magistrates as really a milestone. It was indeed our interest to give to the European Commission a text which could be very ambitious, because we cannot go on discussing the fight against the crime, because we have to be more precise and talk in terms of organized crime and international European mafia. The text of this report does encompass a whole set of introduction of innovation in terms of this fight. We have to consider that we have included the crime of organized crime association, which was foreseen in the Italian territory. But this crime has been introduced at European level. We introduced very hard imprisonment and a confiscation and the seizure of goods coming from illegal activities. We decided to create a European Commission to fight organized crime at European level in order to foster all the agencies' activities, all the agencies which are in charge of fighting against organized crime. Unfortunately, because of a whole series of reasons we're not going to discuss today, these agencies are not in contact. They do not cooperate. I'm referring to Europol, Eurojust, Interpol, all the agencies which have been created to fight and to start organized crime and its field. We are all aware of the fact that, and I have to say in this respect that I'm a bit sorry about this point, consider what it is going on at the moment in my country. The title of today's workshop is Justice Delayed, Denied Justice. This is really a definition of the need that we have to face today, because we have to be sure that all our systems do function, and so that all the citizens' rights are guaranteed. In this respect, I'm very involved indeed. Consider the fact that and I'm going to open a small bracket, because why do I feel involved? Because my country is considered like a democratic country, one of the top European countries. But I don't know in how many other countries 8 journalists have been killed, because killing journalists who have decided to devote the life to the need to inform citizens is something really, really bad. And the last journalist who has been killed for this reason was my father. This happened in 1993 because of his need to write about mafia and to write about the links between Italian politics, white collars, and organized crime. He spoke about the third-level system. He depicted corruption existing in my country. For this crime in Italy, and I'm not quoting this by chance, after 19 years, only 2 people have been condemned, the killer and actually the person who decided to commit this crime. After 19 years, 20 days ago, A public prosecutor in the Calabria region has asked to postpone the sentence for this public prosecutor. So this person is going to judge because he was in charge of these organized crimes. So after 19 years, after almost 20 years, my family is still asking for some justice. This was about to become a denied justice if my family didn't fight in order to have some something done about it. So I'd like to underscore the aspect of the Italian system. Our system is one of the slowest one ever in Europe. So I don't want to go with those who claim that Italian justice is not good enough to develop its tasks. I have to say that Italian justice does not have the proper conditions in order to go on with its tasks. There are some very specified, targeted interventions. We tried to make do so that the Italian judiciary system was not efficient. I'd like to provide a series of examples, and I think some of you will know these examples, but these are very useful in order to underline what I'm about to say. The other point that we have to face is corruption in the judiciary acts. This is something which is really hot, so to speak, these days. And in my country, these two problems are very important. If we think, for example, that Mr. Berlusconi should resign, but the President of the Council, Berlusconi, is accused of paying bribery to a lawyer in order to obtain a false testifying and to avoid being condemned in another cause. And I'd like to remind you that the Corte di Cassazione has already condemned Mills. And if we consider that this person has been considered like the person actually was corrupted, clearly somebody had to corrupt this person. So I think that the picture is really clear. Another aspect which is still linked to the Council President, Mr. Berlusconi, is linked to the acquisition of the same group, which is led by Berlusconi himself, has acted with the editor Mondadori. So the judges has been corrupted within the sentence Mondadori. I'd like to stop here. I don't want to talk about Mr. Berlusconi. I think I've already elaborated too much on him, but I'd like to underscore once again the need for the magistracy to be independent, for the judiciary to be independent from any kind of power. And in my country, I have to say, during the last years, this was not very self-evident, because the independence of the judiciary is foreseen in our constitutions at the Article 101. But the power, the government, and especially the government we have these days, is trying to limit this activity. Just try and think how it is possible for a magistrate to investigate freely, not only on criminal associations, but also on politics and the links between politics and criminal associations, if the magistrate does belong and depend on a government body. It is impossible to guarantee impartiality in absolute terms. And just to go back to some really down-to-earth examples about my country, and in order order to underline the extraordinary capacity that organized crime associations had when they tried to penetrate every institutions, and how they succeeded in corrupt some particular people belonging to these same bodies. I'd like to quote a judge, which is a judge who's magistrate and who had to consider null and void some sentences because of some procedural problems. Thanks to these procedural defects, 500 decisions had been deleted, just like that. The name of this person is Carnevale, and despite the fact that Mr. Carnevale has been condemned in 2001 by the Palermo's court because he was considered as a link to Cosa Nostra, a mafia organization in Italy, the court has completely changed this sentence for an internal procedural reason. It was claimed that the witnessing of other magistrates could not be used because they were covered by the secret of the Chamber of Councils. What happened in the following years was even worse, because there were some ad hoc laws which allowed this magistrate to go back to his place, and despite the fact that is very old. He's the judge of the first civil section of the court. I'd like to stop here because I think that the following reports will probably provide a very important contribution. I'd like to underline the fact that in my country we should reform the prescription institutions, because prescription has been created and is part of these ad personam laws. People who can afford really good lawyers are part of these bodies, notwithstanding the fact that these people are guilty or not. And in order to make institutions more credible, we should take inspiration from some judiciary systems, those who foresee the stop of the sentence when the accused person is not judged on the spot. In order to imagine an impartial judge, and in order to imagine a judge who's free from any sorts of external forms of oppression, we can only imagine this person as an independent person from political influence. So we have to take inspiration from those systems who encompass the independency of magistracy, and I think this aspect has not to be touched, despite the fact that of course, our president is trying to attend with all his means to the constitutions. I'm now going to give the floor to my colleague, and thank you for organizing this conference, not only to compare our systems, but also to go beyond, because we have to do something so that all we say today can probably become a real contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, it's real to be with you today as host of this conference, who is named on the provocative way. We decided to choose a sentence for a common law system because justice delayed, justice denied come from England. But a sentence who is very close to our reality. When I say our reality, I talk about both countries, Italy and Romania, my native country. I want to thank you, all of you, to be here. I hope that this conference will be interesting and especially will be followed by some concrete measure taken by European Parliament, because unfortunately we live in a troubled world, but we face a common problem and a lot of problem in the justice system. Allow me to switch in my native language, we must be equal, because the justice must be equal for all. And I hope that my language will be, in the meantime, clear like your language talking about justice. De ce am ales
Why did we choose to jointly organize this conference, focusing on the state of justice in two very close countries, two countries that are close through history, language, and mentality? Well, a country with a long-lasting democratic tradition, like Italy, and another country with a frail democratic tradition, that is Romania. Frail because apparently learning democracy takes a long time, maybe a little more than 20 years. What we have had so far, as of the revolution from '89, that reopened once again for us the door to Europe. Why delay justice? Why do we say that delay justice is justice denied? Well, because it denies the force of the powers. In a system where the powers are in full balance, all the three powers that are mentioned in the European theory that has been launched by Montesquieu, and that are mentioned in all theoretical and philosophical statements, and even in the contemporary reports, because even today we speak of the balance between powers. All powers should be equal, they should be consistent, and they should fulfill the parts they have to play. But unfortunately, just as Sonia was saying, the political power undergoing a managerial crisis, and I refer here to managerial capacity when I speak of how we manage a country, and a country should be managed to the benefit of its citizens. Well, the political power is trying to rule through justice and tries to subject justice to personal interests. Recently, we've had similar examples in our country. I will not mention them right now. It's not the right time to do so, but they are public, not only in Romania, but unfortunately in Europe as well. But unless we understand that managing justice should fall only on judges and not on politicians, we will not have fair justice, will not have rightful justice, and we run the risk of not having any justice at all. And not having any justice means an imbalance between the state powers, which is a source for crisis and, in many cases, political social conflict. And we are trying to avoid this. However, there is a reality that has been highlighted due to the global crisis, not necessarily an economic one, but also a moral one, in my opinion, because let's say I've always said that you cannot have justice unless you have morale. This is something that the social bodies disregard in many cases, but there is this trend of either to delay learning the truth for a case, and here I refer to criminal cases that are closer to our immediate realities, because the freedom and the life of a person are some of the most important European values, and failing to make justice in a case is denying the European citizens' freedoms and rights. And this, for sure, will be a minus in social development. I chose to speak today, obviously, with the help of experts, of magistrates, of journalists, of authorized people, of important representatives of the civil society. Well, I chose to speak of the state of the judicial system in our countries because we both think that a united Europe also needs joint standards in justice, and we are for common standards in European justice. We all know that countries never wanted to have justice among the topics of the European acquis. Justice also means culture, tradition, history, civilization. But we are here together and we need to have a common history in terms of justice as well. And this conference will raise these kind of problems and will try to offer landmarks for a community justice, because unfortunately in a globalized world, the criminality is also globalized. We can no longer speak of national criminality because the big one, the one that matters, the one that leads to imbalances between nations, that harms economies and harms citizens, harms the European citizens, is cross-border organized crime, either coming from historic or long-lasting networks, just like the mafia in Italy that has had a long history, or coming from more recent organized crime groups that gathered around, in many cases, political groups of interest, which is very serious. If you look at the situation at European level, you will see that the status or the results that some countries have shown is also the result of the way in which governments manage those countries at the border of the law, which means a clear trend towards rendering the ruling management a criminal one. So Europe has to fight and win when fighting against all these trends, because unless we have justice and liability of those that infringe the rules of law, which are not abstractions, which are just the result of a civilization and culture of values that engender the idea of society and human beings. Well, we have to fight together for this society, for this justice, and I think it's worth making all due efforts, because to a large extent the European future depends on this. You probably saw the recent disputes that took place in Greece that were a result of Greece's failure. But they can also be explained by a fraudulent management, even of European funds. We have common interests, we have common landmarks and common values. And this is the scope why we understood to organize together this conference. Thank you.
Allora adesso do la parola al dottor.
I'm now going to give the floor to Mr. Mario Vaudano, Italian prosecutor who's already been working for Olaf. You have the floor. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to notice that the audience is composed by people of my age, but mostly for young people. I'm really happy to notice that the audience is also young. I'm going to speak in Italian, despite the fact that my report is written in English, and I also work in French, but I'm going to stick to my Italian tongue, so hopefully I'll be clearer. First of all, thank you to our two members of parliament for what they said, for what they did, and if you allow me, I hope that I'm going to be grateful for what they will do. I take the liberty to say that we really hope that you're going to do something practical, something down to earth, so to speak. And this is really what we have to expect from all of us. I'm particularly happy to discuss today's topic about denied, about justice delayed and justice denied, because within my career, which started in 1971 and which went on for the following 15 years in Turin, I've been a judge in Turin. This topic has always been very important within my tasks, and I learned how the system worked. And we arrived very quickly to some corruption phenomena within economic structures as well. Also, as a procurer since 1989, for a short time, because then there was the Berlusconi government which arrived, and in 1994, people like me were really kicked out because there were some acts coming from Switzerland about Mr. Previti, and these was the reason why I have been kicked out. And also this has been actually written by the journalist Antonio Di Pietro in those times, so I think I can actually say that. Later on, I was in charge of the legislative bureau, and then I worked in... Well, we spoke in terms of denied justice because we have to speak about decisions. If the decisions have been taken, but then if they're not translated into practice, of course, the justice is denied. That's why during the last period of my career, I decided to do something else, and I worked in a body in order to check the transposition into practice of the decision taken by courts. This has been my last experience before winning a competition and arriving here in Brussels. And once again, I'd like to say that there was an intervention of policy which was distorted. A competition has been stopped. But then there was a sentence with changed the situation. And anyway, they tried to stop the competition, to stop the decision of the magistrature not applying the decree. So this was not a legitimate act. And people who were involved, like me, were left for 6 months without a salary. This was really the situation I lived. So I think I can say that I really have understood what is the intervention of politics within justice. Unfortunately, this situation, and Ms. Alfano has described it properly, is a situation which has been really preponderant during the last years. So I'm talking about Italy. When we are facing a normal process, we noticed that there were several denies, several attempts to deny a normal sentence. And for normal people, for crimes committed by some immigrants, there were some, on the contrary, you know, the decisions were really fast and quick. If you go and visit some prisons, you can probably notice that there's a very high percentage of foreign people from let's say, which went from 7-8% to 30%. This is not because of the number of immigrants who raised. So it is really a political choice of a conservative government which wants to persecute certain particular crimes. So if a government decides to take that path, and I don't agree with that, not following the proper procedures, then of course you're not facing the right path. there were continuous attempts with some particular laws, especially laws on the conflict of interest, privileges, immunities and everything, which really were an attempt to provide privilege to the political class. And these situations have been repeated on several occasions. So really, the law has not been respected at all in Italy. And the judiciary power has been charged by all the trivial crimes, the way I define them. Of course, every crime has to be fought, but they don't have to stop the judiciary machine, the judiciary organization. So we cannot avoid a very important crime just focusing on the small crimes. So I'm saying that, and I want to open a parenthesis, not because the situation is much better in other countries, because I could really quote the example of France, for example. But the fact that we have bad examples is not a good reason to destroy what is good in Italy, the little things which do function in Italy. So there are some judges and magistrates who were corrupted, some others who do not work, some magistrates who sold themselves in order to have higher salaries and work in the ministries. One of the things that we tend to forget is the fact that within this government, unfortunately, there are some particular tasks for magistrates who decided to have a salary which was 3 times the one they had before the Berlusconi government. And we should actually discuss this point as well, because there are several ways of selling yourself. You can also decide to accept this sort of work, this sort of tasks. And this is a form of corruption as well. Of course, it's clear that these people have to have the proper salary, but there must be a limit to everything. And of course, these situations really have become more and more spread. There were some top managing positions which did not exist beforehand, which have been created on purpose for these people. Some managing careers which have been paid by the state and which are totally useless. And then on the other side, on the other hand, there are no funds for other things. But of course, we always find money to renew the number of cars which are used by the members of parliament. These sort of expenses need to be limited and need to be carried out in a rational way. So these particular cars, armored cars, should be certainly used, but normally an armored car becomes old more quickly because it is not something which is conceived to last for a long time. So this denied justice is a justice which is pushed towards another sort of repression. It has been the typical characteristics of the system.
And this is also due to the government, to the opposition as well, but above all, the government has made a lot of mistakes. So hopefully the government couldn't really change things because magistrates rebelled in a certain way, but said that the government really fought not to change things. And then the penal law changed a little bit in the past years. And what was at stake? Well, the independence of magistrates was at stake, and this is the main thing. So we just wanted to keep our independence in each single institution. Independence as to be kept. But this is what the government is fighting against. So this has been the main issue in the last 10 years. So we want that each magistrate, each prosecution office have the liberty, the freedom to do their job in the most adequate way. And then we also need much more magistrates. We need more people to work into this great, into this difficult job. So we have to try to be able to follow our road. We need to change things. We need to give more power and more independence to all the different prosecutors, and then we have to choose more of them. We have to give them more freedom because, well, we have to say that in Italy justice is slow because it never finishes, because there's always something new coming up. So you cannot really end a trial. And then in the past, they modified a few articles that allowed to gather some proofs without really presenting them. So they made that this change was not really what it was needed. And I don't want to talk about Giovanni Falcone and what he has done for Italy in the past. You all know them. But said that, so once again, the government has tried to make things easier for themselves. So things got really complicated. The left wing as well didn't react in the proper way. So in the last 10, 15 years, we have been seeing so many mistakes, laws that were not fair, ad personam laws, and no more independence for the judges, or less independence for the judges. So as you can see, many of the things that should be guaranteed in a democratic country haven't been assured, like the prescription limitation law has changed because now the prescription limitation is much lower for any kind of frauds, for corruption, for all these kinds of offenses, of criminal offenses. So that's what they did. And they cut it short, 50%. They cut it by 50%, the prescription limitation. So just imagine how bad this could be, and the impact on the Italian system. So this is, of course, not the best solution. We have to say that the Italian system is quite complicated, it's quite complex, which should change a lot of things. But now the prescription limitation has been cut by 50% once again. So if you don't have the time to finish the trial, well, the guy who is about to be judged will be freed because the time has passed. So this is not, of course, what we are looking for. And that's why all the different changes that have been made are negative in a certain way. So the prescription limitation is one of the worst case, I can tell you. And the prescription law of the ex Cirielli law has abolished the interruption time. So they said that, okay, you cannot interrupt the prescription anymore. So if you do something wrong against the commission and you have you run the risk to be freed because the prescription time has been reduced, and this goes for other kind of criminal offenses. So just imagine how difficult it is to manage all this. And then they have increased the prescription limitation for offenses, minor offenses. And so just imagine small offenses. And so just imagine for this kind of things, it's been doubled. So I'm really upset about this, and but this is not the only thing that we have to say about Italian justice in this sense. But we also have to say that always the same people.
Articolo 3, che dice che non solo la legge è uguale per tutti, ma che lo Stato, capoverso, non solo è uguale per tutti, e già non è uguale per tutti con questo sistema, ma che lo Stato ha l'obbligo, dice l'obbligo nell'articolo 3 capoverso, l'obbligo di fare tutto quello che è possibile per far sì che che la giustizia e l'eguaglianza di fatto sia raggiunta, cioè vuol dire che non basta dire sei uguale, ma devi dare i mezzi a ogni persona di diventare uguale. Questa è la nostra Costituzione. Si è fatto l'incontrario, esattamente l'incontrario. Non si è ancora riusciti a distruggere l'indipendenza della magistratura, non si è ancora riusciti a togliere la polizia giudiziaria completamente, ma i danni sono stati fatti e ne abbiamo avuto degli esempi nella cultura della polizia che era cambiata nel corso degli anni. Abbiamo visto i fatti di Genova, per fare un esempio, e altri fatti recenti. Non sono un caso, sono dovuti al fatto che si è cercati di ritornare indietro.
C'è qualche problema con la traduzione?
We have a problem with translation.
Sì? Entusiasmato.
Do you hear me now? 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 Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Sì, pronto? Sentite?
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? So once again, justice has been denied, but this is on a daily basis. There was a project of law, a bill of law that was that wanted to take off independence from magistrates and only to the judicial police that wanted to take off some of their powers. So there is a real earthquake in our national system, but we cannot just stare at them and wait for any reactions. We have to be proactive, and I hope that things will change for the better. And once again, they want to give the judiciary police the possibility to denounce an offense even in a later time, because now the judiciary police has got the right to inform a public prosecutor within the 48 hours following the offense. This because we have to give guarantees to the public opinion and to the policeman, because once the policeman gets in touch with the public prosecutor, and then there's a clear relationship between the two, well, this is of course a form of security for the policeman. He can keep working like this if he feels that he is safeguarded, that he is protected by the prosecutors as well. And this is something that they wanted to take off policemen. And then one last thing, and I'm sorry if I've been a bit too talkative, but it's really something that I really want to share with you, because the government is trying to destroy our national system. The government wants to take their own decisions without really taking into consideration the public opinion. They want to kill the culture. They want to kill the public opinion. So values are not there anymore. Values are not what they used to be in the past. So once again, well, of course, now I am retired, but I'm still quite proactive in this field, and I hope that things will change for the better in the next, in the following years. So this is quite a negative note as far as Italy is concerned, but I hope that things will change once again. As far as the other countries are concerned, well, things are not that better in other countries, and so don't think that Italy is much worse than any other countries. Of course, we have many, many big issues, many political issues, but do you know how many people got arrested within the 48 hours by the police? 800,000. These are official statistics. So out of 60 million people, 850,000 French citizens get arrested for 48 hours, and this is the case. So once again, recently the French court finally said that this was against the rights of each single citizen. So they cannot do so, and same thing happens in England. And an example, corruption of the family of Saudi Arabia. They are corrupted, but Tony Blair said to close down the trial, though they were guilty. Why? But because the system foresees that in England the Prime Minister can do so. So this to tell you that the situation is not, of course, rosy. Italy, you know, they always talk about Italy. We have many negative sides, of course, but we are not the only ones. Europe has to react. Europe has to stick together and fight against this trend. So altogether, we have to go ahead, because otherwise we would really be in a very, very bad situation. And then I would like to end my intervention with a sentence from Arrigo Levi, a famous Italian writer. He was also he wrote two great books, and he once said, and I got to know him personally in my past life, in the recent years, and he once said the following. And Arrigo Levi talking about corruption. Well, corruption belongs, is part of my daily life, and I still need many answers. And not only about Nazism, not only about wars, not only about terrorism, but I would like to talk also to bad politicians, to those who corrupt, those who get corrupted. So I really wonder if the humanity is already lost, or if we still have time to catch up. Thank you.
Mulțumesc.
Thank you. I would like to welcome the Romanian ambassadors in Brussels, Mr. Dranga I want to thank him for being with us tonight. And I also want to give the floor to the following speaker, Mr. Victor Alister, the director of Transparency International Romania, a professor for the Bucharest School of Politics, and also an attorney. You have the floor. I will start by thanking the organizers for this initiative. It is relevant these days to have justice that guarantees in Europe that the social contract will properly work. This in times of crisis, and given the measures taken during this period, because it has been shown that the legitimacy principle has been altered a lot, the legitimacy principle that stands at the grounds of the social contract. Justice is the arbiter called upon to guarantee that there are correct, honest, and transparent relations between citizens and the state, but also relations among citizens in order to ensure public and social security. Under these circumstances, when we see that the social contract is questioned right now, when we see that due to the urgency of decisions taken by executives in Europe, this process no longer consults the taxpayers or the companies, well, justice is the one that should intervene. As for Romania, justice should also intervene when it comes to guaranteeing the rules needed for freedom. And one of the golden rules is public integrity. Under these circumstances, criminal justice requires capacity, but also clarity. I will try to start with Jeremy Pope's paradigm, who, when describing the national integrity model, analyzed the pillars of a society based on three elements: regulation, capacity, and role that each of the pillars should play in the national integrity system. As for the regulation of the Romanian justice, we have enough rules, but not all of them are that clear. Unfortunately, due to the urgency, many of the reforms that have been adopted during the past 20 years have not had the expected impact once they were enforced. And once everyone expected to have the mechanism adapted to these reforms. Many of these reforms were actually results of political image. Deep thoughts and mentalities were replaced by political messages. And these were errors that impacted the judicial system, but also the citizens. Because among the results, we had delayed justice, which is also denied justice. And all these are consequences that started from a paradigm. We have regulations, but they are chaotic. The last example is that in which we adopt modern, let's say, modern measures in the criminal court, because we have a preliminary chamber judge, an instruction judge. Since we don't have enough staff, enough judges, and those the judges we already have to rule on many cases, it is clear that these human resources should come from the prosecutors we already have. But out of the 2,000 prosecutors we have currently, we will probably have not enough in the future. And we will need to take police officers from the judicial police. From a human resources perspective, this means lowering the standards. And here we get to the capacity that Pope was referring to. The capacity of the judicial system comes from the quality and the consistency of the results gotten when you enforce the legal action. And some relevant aspects in terms of the capacity of the Romanian judicial system. The Romanian judicial system, for instance, does not have in all the courts paper on which to print the court decisions. We don't have offices where the judges could, for the judges. That is why in many courts, the judges share rooms with the clerks. These are just examples, and you have statistics that speak for themselves, but I thought it best to refer to clear examples. As for the capacity, we see that there is not a properly working mechanism for unifying the justice practices. Not the practice of the courts, but unifying the practice at the prosecutor's office's level. Because here the arbitrary element can play an important part on the activity. Apart from the claims made by citizens for some actions, the holder of the criminal act is the prosecutor. We have a new element introduced in the new criminal code, according to which not all crimes should be investigated, because in some cases the investigation costs could be higher than the results, re-establishing the rule of law. As for the role, justice in Romania, which is a democratic state, accepted in the European club because it complied with the Copenhagen criteria, in written, in many cases not in reality, plays an important part. But this role is not only given by the regulations, but it is also given by your ability to reach and to comply with your mission. Once justice cannot be efficient when it comes to reinstating the rule of law, either because of non-unitary practices or delayed rulings that are the result of chaotic legislations, and I will not get into this detail, or because justice doesn't have the ability to rule itself, then the justice can no longer play its part, that of arbiter among the actors of a state. Something that raises a lot of problems is the lack of legitimacy of political decisions in crisis periods, but also the lack of legitimacy of rulings that are founded on a legislation that no longer represent social values, and because they are no longer the result of the political will or the taxpayers' will. So here we speak of formal enforcement of texts that are not agreed at by the society. Hence, many issues that affect the role played by justice. How? Well, rulings that only analyze the legal framework and enforce the legal framework to reestablish the rule of law are strongly criticized by the society as being incoherent and inconsistent in comparison to the society's expectations. And here we have a causality between the criticism addressed by the society in respect to the justice result and the credibility of the act of justice. The main tool that justice has is credibility. A problem that we identify is that of the justice's capacity to correct abuse and corruption. And unfortunately, in Romania, the anti-corruption subject is a real one, and the citizens, the business environment, and foreign investors have strongly felt it. This is something that was taken over in the political agenda, but how it has been used during these past years was for propagandic reasons. In the pre-accession period, Romania showed its political commitment by adopting laws that have been published in the official journal of Romania, stating that if we have published the law, then we will also enforce it. But later on, through safeguarding clauses, we introduced a mechanism to reduce this enforcement. Europe asked Romania to show results. That's when we came with a spectacular PR campaign and just stole from ourselves all indicators, all studies. For instance, the index on corruption perception, the index on bribe payers, all assessments on the risks shown by Romania in terms of legislation and corruption, licensing or regulations in the economic sector have shown that, in fact, corruption is not only endemic in the administration, but also systemic when it comes to decision-making. Here, in a state where we have a balance between all powers, there should have been a clear part played by justice. If there is a consequence, if we want to say that we are a country, despite the fact that all indicators show that we are a country prone to corruption and vulnerable to corruption, but we have many laws on fighting it, then this means that something was missing. Maybe some of the political campaigns were not honest enough. It's quite possible sometimes the politics has nothing to do with the hierarchy of values, but with real thinking. But we also missed, we didn't have something, a properly working justice. What happened? Well, we all know and should understand that unfortunately in Romania, instead of the justice deeds in courts of justice, well, all these activities were replaced by justice made on TV, where the magistracy participated or took place, especially in the pre-court phase, where the media would learn about all the cases. Once you can no longer control how conversations take place, when you can no longer intercept data trafficking, then you have a vulnerable point. Then another problem was the fact that we had political pressure, and we need to have important names of politicians. And those were the times when some case laws were made in haste, and judges in many cases had their hands tied because they had to trial the persons. If a case cannot stand trial, then that person cannot be sentenced. And although judges felt that something was wrong, they could not do it. You cannot do this just because you have this feeling. You have to rule on proof, on evidence. So we have a wide discussion on the role of the prosecutor in Romania. Although the prosecutors and the judges have the same part, it's not actually like this. And hence we have a discussion on those criteria that the profession should set and the procedures related to them. Another issue related to the role of prosecutor as magistrate or agent of executive power is related to how criminal proceedings take place, whether they are or not subject to the courts. According to the Romanian constitution and legislation, all activities that infringe on freedoms and liberties should be authorized priorly by the judges. So based on the guarantees, things are sure. But when it comes to the real life, things are not that sure anymore, because this mixture between the law enforcement system in the criminal proceedings and the data collection system from the national data system has not been properly regulated. That is why, because of this, we have excess of powers. And once you have this, you also have a denial of justice. From our point of view, these elements should be clearly stated at European level without going into all the specific elements that would infringe upon the subsidiarity principle. But since we have a Stockholm program on anti-corruption, program regarding standards that are compulsory from legal perspective for the legal system are not harmful. We have the principles of Bangalore, and this could serve as regulation tools. We have Regulation 1 on standards for justice independence. We have a lot of other documents that could be unified or negotiated to get some common denominators, and these thus have a sure framework. We also need to have a serious assessment of what capacity and capacity guarantees actually means. Capacity guarantees in order to deem a country as having a properly working judicial system. Another issue related to the ability of justice to answer corruption matters is unifying the statute of limitation. There are cases when we have economic crimes, corruption, for instance, in Greece. We see it as cross-border corruption. We've talked about the jurisdiction to trial the German company, for instance. It was ruled in favor of the German justice system, but the statute of limitation was of 1 year, so the case was no longer trialed because of a statutory statute of limitation of 1 year. We speak of clear things. This lack of unification is the source of many, many problems. And one last aspect related to role comes from this association of independence and responsibility. In Romania, prosecutors, according to law, are not independent. The prosecutor is headed by a person politically appointed, following the proposal of the Ministry of Justice, with the opinion, the consultative opinion, given by the Judiciary Council through the decision of the President. This means that the general prosecutor and all prosecutors heading the prosecutor offices, and also the organizations fighting corruption activities and organized crime. Based on the way in which the Ministry of Public Defense is organized, we have a principle of hierarchy that has been introduced based on the Constitution. But once you have political appointment in the top of a hierarchy, you can no longer speak of independence of all stakeholders, irrespective of their level. And when you don't have independence, well, you cannot have full responsibility. And I don't speak here of liability, but responsibility, which is a subsidiarity principle in meeting the role that you have to play. The same goes for disciplinary liability of magistrates. Here we have large talks in Romania, and we have two trends. One, according to which those who make a mistake should pay for it, malpraxis. This is individual liability of magistrates. If the state has made a mistake, the state should pay for it. But some laws have not been properly drafted, or the mechanisms to enforce the law are not that good. This is not the magistrate's fault. Apart from this, there is another trend coming from the political sector, and unfortunately in the last 8 years, since I've been monitoring this, this is a cross-party trend to trigger liability whenever justice does not meet the principles of opportunity of the executive, that in many cases rules above the legislative. So justice should analyze the major objectives of internal and external public policy. It's not up to the justice to do this, but unfortunately, this is a serious infringement of everything related to a common understanding of the state of law and social contract at European level. We cannot speak of different requirements in Romania from other countries, and we cannot disregard the Romanian realities if our citizens are part of the European club. I will conclude here, because we are getting close to drawing the conclusions. And I will conclude by saying that we need another Stockholm program. And if this initiative comes from the Parliament, we will have to rethink the role played by justice as guarantor of the social contract, which is put under question under this crisis period. At the same time, justice should play its part in this among the three powers. And apart from the three powers, we also have the counter powers that Tocqueville speaks of: civil society, the media. And apart from this paradigm, where we seem to have a closed vicious circle, we also need to have an analysis that does not necessarily focus on human rights and goes to the Court of Strasbourg, but we need to have a system to guarantee the litigation system and extend the attributes to the Court of Luxembourg. We need to have European joint standards, and in this way we will no longer have problem with the advocacy capacity of the courts in our country. And I refer here to what happened in France and the reaction of the magistrates in France, and also to the legislation amendments in Italy for political reasons. We cannot guarantee that the Copenhagen criteria is followed unless we have a joint quantification mechanism, and this mechanism cannot show appreciations or decisions of political opportunity at that moment, because there are some problems right now that the Romanian citizens and taxpayers should have to cover, to pay for, and the Bulgarian citizens and taxpayers, because it all comes down to the real capacity to have a system that ensures the legitimacy of the state through a strong and fair justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. First of all, I want to apologize on behalf of my colleague because she must left to Rome tonight. She have a very delicate problem in the family. The next speaker is Mr. Federico Gatti, Bureau of Investigative Journalism in London. You have the floor.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the two MEPs, Sonia Alfano and Norica Nicolai, for the possibility to be here. And for those who don't know the Bureau, we are a not-for-profit organization born in April 2010. And in the first 18 months, the Bureau provided many front pages and documentaries for the main international media. The MEP Nicolai, in introduction, spoke about global criminality and mafia and organized crime, and I'm here to give you my point of view on these subjects, as we, in the last year and a half, focused ourselves in a project that concerned the European Union as we tracked down all the 600,000 beneficiaries of the European structural funds. So first of all, if we want justice, we need transparency. We need to know where the European funds go. So we took 9 months together with the Financial Times to track down 600,000 beneficiaries of the EU funds across the 27 nations. And it was a tough job. And this job started because of one reason, because European Union doesn't really know where the money goes. So the first question is, why the European Union, that gives 350 billions of euro every 4 or 5 years, doesn't have a centralized database in order to know where the money goes? Second of all, from the database we created, there emerged few striking results, like millions of euro literally given to multinationals like Coca-Cola, IKEA, McDonald's, and Siemens. And I want to remind you that these funds are actually meant to help the local economies. So why these multinationals are being given so many money? And this is another question we raised. And the European Commission welcomed our investigation and it said, yeah, we actually didn't even think about doing something like that. But to me, this kind of works, this kind of database journalism is the real answer for justice and transparency within the European authorities. And regarding the Italian side, we focus ourselves in the south of Italy, especially in Calabria and Sicily, two economies that highly depend and rely on public funds. And in the last 10 years, we found out that more than 2 billion euro went directly into the pocket of organized crime. The striking thing is that in 2006, an anti-mafia commission report wrote by Francesco Forgione, a prosecutor, said, the public funds given by the states or the European Union is historically one of the favorite ways for the 'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian mafia, to funding itself. In Calabria and in its economic system, everything depends on public funds, from the individual to the industrial companies, from agriculture to tourism. And there is no company where the 'Ndrangheta doesn't have the power to influence or to directly control their activities. So, as said, in the last 10 years, we found out that 2 billion euro were directly controlled by organized crime, both in Calabria and in Sicily. We focus ourselves in two main projects. The first is a 400 kilometers long highway called Salerno-Reggio Calabria. It's a highway that goes from the top of Calabria down to the toe of Italy. And the second is a national law called Law 488. Well, the first one is an example of how organized crime works. In the 80s and in the 90s, where the European funds were given to the region, all the mafia bosses gathered together and they divided the 400 kilometers into several areas of interests. And then they started the construction by controlling the companies involved in the construction, asking for a 3% bribe to all the companies. And in order to pay the bribe, the companies in the area had to save money by using poor material or make other irregularities. So this has been going on for ages and decades. And if you go there, it's still like that. The second aspect we focus ourselves on is a national law called Law 488 that exploits European structural funds. Basically, you can apply for European funds with obviously a business plan and ask for the money. But then it comes the organized crime that is really skilled in getting key people in the authorities. So basically, we found a massive network of corruption from the local businesses to the regional authorities up to the state, but not only. I will speak later, and we found out also some, responsibilities among the EU authorities. So, if the project with which you ask for money is just on paper, everybody can present a business plan, pay a bribe, and corrupt the local authority, and then they split the money. The system became clear once we got a former mafia boss to speak with us, and he said that, yeah, the same people that were supposed to control the allocation of the money were actually the sponsors of certain companies, and they called this free money. Always quoting from the 2006 anti-mafia reports, they said, the normality of this corrupting mechanism is possible because of the absolute lack of prevention systems. Over the past few years in which this enormous amount of money came, no local or regional authority from both political sides decided to enforce the prevention system. And then he had that this is an institutionalized mockery. So this aspect is that at a certain level, there is some accomplishment from the national institutions. And this became clear once we went to Catanzaro, one of the cities in south of Italy with the highest rate of corruption within the local authorities. And I went to the office of a financial policeman, and the kind of offices for second-level offices, it's small and in bad conditions. So basically, this guy, 32-year-old, called Roberto Sorino, have been in charge of a small team of financial offices that in 8 years, they saved 500,000 millions of euro. A massive result, massive result. But then, speaking to him, looking where he was forced to do his job, you could see that the extra-hour works weren't paid. You could see that he had to pay his petrol. You could see so many daily-based difficulties that you could have the clear example that, yeah, the state didn't really want to help him. Luigi De Magistris, former president of Kokobu, now mayor of Naples, once asked about this institutionalized mockery, said that there is a transversal organization that aims to get its hands onto EU funds, and it's made by politicians, entrepreneurs, and businessmen. So here is the second question. How is it possible that the funds are given as grants to the regions where there is a well-known presence of organized crime and a high rate of corruption among the regional authorities without the possibility to actually effectively control where this money goes? And the thing is, the bigger is the fund, the bigger is the criminal network. The MEP Nicolai said that there is a massive problem of international organized crime, and that is true. I spoke with Roberto Scarpinato, a Sicilian prosecutor we have talking, and it was in charge of a massive European scam. Basically, it was a scam of the wind farms in 2009 in Sicily and in Sardinia, where they found that Italian institutions and international investors were able to steal billions of euros. He said, this is not a regional or national problem anymore. This is a pan-European one. The mafia is just the last ring of this chain. We are talking about an international and well-connected network of interest that touch international institutions as well as international trading places, like London, Paris, and so. But I can go even further. When we came here to ask to European institutions and the European Commission about this problem, we had several surprising answers. Ingeborg Grasse from the Kokobu told us that there were member states that actively tackled the Olaf, that they don't want it to detect any fraud cases. And then she said that 93% of these fraud cases are not picked up. And the one picked up have no consequences at all. And after the case, nothing happens. This means we are tolerating the frauds. So it's not just a matter of corruption among the Italian side or the local side. It's a corruption within the European Parliament and European Commission. I don't know if it's true. I don't even know if it's a problem of corruption or a problem of incapability. But surely the result is the same. Money that can be vital for many local economies are given to criminals. I could speak for ages about the entire areas in south of Italy, out of control of the EU. But I don't want to bother you or annoy you. But one thing is crucial. We came to the Olaf and asking for answers about these scams. And Nicolas Hillet, the former president of Olaf, said, "We are understaffed, we have no money and no power for prosecution." He told us that the people allocated to the structural funds area, which I remind is 350 billions of euro every time, are just 20. Across the 27 states, you can't deal with these numbers with so few people. And Hillet even told us that he never put any of his collaborators onto the case of Law 488. So it seems that it's an unbearable situation where billions of euros are out of controls and where the corruption is deeply rooted both locally and inside the EU Parliament. We got to change the situation, and this is my point of view, and a journalistic point of view. This is out of my jurisdiction. I want people like Nikolai, like Sonia, to actively take arms on that, because otherwise Europe cannot stand on its feet, and giving out billions of euros every year is something that we cannot afford anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. We continue with our colleague, Mr. Marius Bada Tudose, which is Romanian judge, member of the Superior Council of Magistrature of Romania. You have the floor.
First of all, and before starting to talk, I would like to thank you for this invitation, and I also want to thank you for having chosen this very generous and pressing topic, because not only Romania faces this problem, but many European countries. After having listened to the previous speakers, I think that the topic chosen for today's debate comes as an addendum to what they said, especially given the fact that in the Romanian courts, the highest number of cases ruled are civil cases, not criminal. So over 90% of cases are civil cases. In terms of judge and also member of the Superior Council of Magistracy in Romania, together with my colleague, Mrs. Pivniceru, I've tried to draft a full technical paper that highlights the real problems faced by the Romanian legal system. And following this presentation, we are to draw ourselves the conclusion as to have a clear and exact opinion on all the system problems. Today, we can no longer speak of a field of any field that hasn't had to do with an avalanche of legal frameworks in order to rule in issues on which justice before didn't have to rule upon. Consequently, law is no longer deemed as a normal social connection that regulates some states, but it's subject to juridicization and arises readjusting the position of the judge, who is to regulate the position and the rapport between people. In this way, justice is seen as solving social problems, and the legal system is in this way a way of acknowledging a right, but also a way of enforcing that right through the state intervention, whose judge is just another continuation of it. We can speak of two notions connected by a cause-to-effect link. Each cause has direct consequences on the efficiency of the legal system, the legal action, that falls under the provisions of Article 6, Paragraph 1 of the Convention of Human Rights. Under these circumstances, the terms jurisdiction and judicial have a high impact on the imperative condition of any jurisdictional system that compels adjustment to reduce time between solving a case according to the Human Rights Convention, according to the creance right of all justice makers. This phenomenon means huge editation of legal norms covering all sectors that are susceptible or subject to contentious. And before adding something, we have to provide statistical data for you to understand the real situation in Romania when it comes to lawmaking. At least what has happened during these past 5 years. So in the past 5 years, we have adopted in Romania 2080 laws, 225 government ordinances, and 830 emergency ordinances. In total, 3,167 legal documents. Also, during these past 5 years, the number of legal documents amending previously issued legal documents is of 1021, out of which 448 laws, 128 government emergencies, and the rest are just government ordinances. During these past years, 118 laws have been amended. At the same time, the executive power was substituted by the lawmaker, taking advantage of the fact that the Article 115 of the Romanian Constitution allows for a delegation of attributes without any previous debates. And this is a reason for that triggers legal instability, because many of the laws have been amended several times within a year after they have been adopted. 514 ordinances are in this situation. Moreover, through government ordinances, we even change organic laws. And the reference period has dealt with 292 legal documents, out of which 250 were government ordinances. At the same time, the parliament activity focuses on debating already or legal documents that have been already enforced. And many documents amending laws that have been adopted have been changed. The legal system has not been deprived of these amendments, and 28 laws have been changed, 4 government ordinances and 37 government ordinances. So we are under a legal avalanche, and apart from this, we also have the European directives. Between 2006 and 2011, we had about 618 European directives. The legal framework was amended by 244 annulments in the interest of referrals in the interest of the law issued by the Court of Cassation and Justice, and 118 decisions of the Constitutional Court that allow for the non-constitutionality exceptions. The normativity of inflation is has a part of diminishing the influence of the state, and it also infringes upon national rule of law, allows contact with the European companies that are subject to other legislative systems, and hence we could have conflicts where we have various laws, applicable laws, and there are not only few national laws are acceptable to solve these conflicts?
At present, I would like you to understand some particular cases which have been examined lately by the European Court for Human Rights. I have chosen two case studies which face the recovery of the goods that were confiscated in the period of 1989, two laws which would repair this situation, which draw our attention especially. The first law refers to law number 10 of 2001 regarding the judicial regime of assets which were taken over by the state. Law 18 has recognized that the former owners and their children would have the right to be given back their agricultural lands. The greatest amendment was introduced for law number 1 of 2000, which increased the surface which could have been given back up to 50 hectares for each person for arable land and 100 hectares for the they were allowed to receive also money. In what concerns this, because there was a lack of specialized legislation that would decide the legal perspective, the courts have decided that they are competent to decide the legality of these papers, and to decide if they are going to find them illegal to give back the goods that were confiscated. The ratification of Law 112 of 95 for regulating the judicial system of assets which were inhabited and were taken over by the state allowed for these assets to be sold to tenants. This was not possible to be given to the old owners only if they would live as tenants or if the assets were not lived by anybody. The old owners could request money. In regards to the assets which belong to the national minorities organizations and to religious cults, Ordinance 8399 regarding the restitution of goods which belong to minorities in Romania and Ordinance 94 of 2000 regarding requesting restitution of goods that belong to the religious cults focused on giving back those goods or actually giving back some amount of money. Law number 10 of 2001 agreed on this principle of giving back the aforementioned goods. If the goods could not be given back, the former owners or their children would not be granted these goods. Law number 1 of 2009 regarding the amendment and completion of law number 10 of 2001 regarding the legal status of goods that were taken over in an abusive manner during the communist period states that law number 12 of 95 cannot belong to goods that will be given back. The possibility of choosing between the restitution and the special procedure provided by law number 11 of 2001 was eliminated in the favor of the latter procedure. Besides the goods included in these laws, the state has to pay the former owners or their children who have lost the assets, the agricultural lands or lands, as a following to the changes of the borders during the Second World War. Law number 9 of 98 regarding compensations for the Romanian citizens for the goods that are the property of the Bulgarian state. 290 of 2003 regarding compensation for the Romanian citizens for the goods which were owned by them and were taken over or were left in Basarabia, Bucovina and the Herța County as a following of the war and of the peace treaty between Romania and the ALDE. And 393 of 2006 regarding compensations for the Romanian citizens for the goods which belong to the former Serbian and Croatian area regarding certain islands on the Danube, and a joint exchange between Romania and Yugoslavia, and the convention between Romania and Serbian area for the border area, for a treaty that was signed in Belgrade in 1924, coordinated by the National Authority for Restitution of Properties. The administrative procedure is different for these goods than that for the goods which were nationalized, and the funds which are necessary are given by the state budget. Law number 247 of 2005 regarding the reform in the justice and property sector, which is at present has modified at present the formal laws regarding the retribution, especially an unified administrative procedure regarding the request for these goods, which is under the aforementioned laws. This states that if the assets are not restituted, the beneficiaries can choose for their debts to be compensated in accordance with the internal and international standards in regards to restitutions for assets and houses which are abusively taken over by the state. The main role in enforcement of this law was given to two new structures.
The Central Committee for Restitution, that I will from here after refer to as Central Committee, and the National Authority for the Asset Restitution. And new deadlines for the restitution or reimbursement claims have been introduced: 60 days for land and 6 months for buildings that belonged to organizations of national minorities or religious groups. The decisions of local authorities, based on which they propose to allocate restitutions or retributions, should be previously controlled by the head of the county council. They should be lawful and then sent to the Central Committee. The provisions regulating the lawfulness of these are set in the government decision 128 from 2008. According to this, if the prefect deems that the decision of other local authorities is not legal, then he can challenge this decision based on the administrative contentious within 1 year from the decision. Once the Central Committee receives the file, they have to check the lawfulness of the decision to decline the restitution and then inform the people involved. Based on the report, on the assessment report, the Central Committee will issue a retribution title or will send the file to the central authorities to be examined. When it comes to paying the amount set by the Central Committee, a new body was set up called the Proprietatea Fund. Most of its capital is represented by state assets. Law 247 from 2005 stated that within 30 days from its creation, the Proprietatea Fund would have to take all deemed measures in order to list its shares at the stock exchange, so that the beneficiaries should benefit from the best prices possible. As of July 2005, Law 247 from 2005 was once again amended in terms of the way in which the Proprietatea Fund would work, but also in relation to the computation methods and procedures used to offer retribution. In 2007, on the 28th of July, government adopted a new government ordinance 81 in order to speed up the retribution needed corresponding to abusively taken over buildings. That also changed the way in which the Proprietatea Fund was to work. According to Government Decision 128 from 2008 on amending and supplementing the methodological rules for enforcing Title VII on the regime for issuing payments for buildings that have been taken over abusively, and law number 247 on the reform in the legal system, approved by government decision number 195 from 2005. Once the retribution title is issued by the Central Committee, the interested party has the possibility to choose whether they will receive money in cash with a threshold of 50,000 lei and the rest in shares, or receive the entire amount in cash. This is to be chosen through the National Restitution Authority that will replace the retribution title with another title that corresponds to the money in cash, and the conversion title corresponding to the rest of amount that will be transferred or into shares at the Proprietatea Fund. This will be done within 3 years from the issuance of the retribution title. The claims or the requests will be chronologically analyzed, but there is no clear deadline for this. The payment of amounts in cash that are below 250,000 lei will be done within 1 year as of the moment when the payment title was issued, and within 2 years for amounts exceeding for amounts ranging from 250,000 lei and 500,000 lei. Consequently, based through Government Ordinance 62 from 2010 for amending and supplementing Law 228 from 2008 on political sentences and administrative measures assimilated to these, that have been ruled between 6th of March 45 and the 28th of December 89, and in order to suspend some of the provisions of Law 247 from 2005, the payment of all payments in cash will be suspended for 2 years in order to ensure that there is a budgetary balance. During this period, the retribution titles can only be converted into shares at Proprietatea Fund. Law 18 from 1998 has been amended so far by more than 70 legal documents. And even the right to restitution has been changed. Right now, we speak of 50 hectares for a natural person, but also the procedures for restitution have been changed. The way in which the claims for restitution are to be analyzed, the competent bodies that will allow for this restitution, all these changes were immediately enforced and thus impacted the claims that had already been submitted and not solved up to that point. In October 97, Law 169, and in October 2001, Law 51, then Law 247 in 2005. Law 19 from 97 increased the amount to 50 hectares for a natural person, and the restitution should have been done in the previous location or in another location. Law 1 from 2000 and states that the reimbursement, if this restitution cannot be done fully in kind, then a retribution should be made. In this way, we can say that this juridicization phenomena is a corollary of all these actions. But all these measures are consistent only if they are supported by judges. Our mentality on law has been changed as a result of a change in the society, and it seems that the legal system does not have the full ability to fully integrate all the abilities to solve social conflict. This phenomenon of constant juridicization focuses on the citizens' expectations from local authorities, expectations that are closely linked to a need for safety, for regulating subjective rights and new rights, and this increases legal conflicts. The judges are seen as a replacement for the institutions that traditionally had a part in solving or regulating social behaviors. This juridicization has a high impact on social life and is at the base of the juridicization in the extent in which it can trigger contentious.
Therefore, it focuses directly on the law, and equally, the Constitution can represent a base as well as the European Court for Human Rights, and the latter is the base for multiplying the actions and this legal constant represents a consequence of the society, affecting also the state as well as its traditional and cultural structures, the right being present but not being efficient. We can believe that this phenomena is due to democratic individualism, which would like to satisfy the individual rights by the citizen, patient, student, beneficiary of a service, of a public service, by an elector, which is seen as a consumer for receiving a service without any risk or fault from the service provider, which has as an obligation a result. This legal phenomena signifies an excessive procedure which corresponds to the jurisdiction phenomena which generated it. We have some more important statistical data. In the period that we spoke about previously, the courts, no matter how they were organized, have solved almost 10 million cases, legal cases, out of 13.5 million cases, the total number of new cases being of over 9 million case files. In the first 6 months, in the first semester, quarter, we have solved almost 1.3 million cases, out of which, of the total of 2.1 million, the new cases are of 1.3 cases. This big quantity of files was managed by almost 4,000 judges, over 2,100 for the courts, over 1,400 for the tribunals, and over 650 for the courts of appeals, and 120 for the higher court of cassation and justice. A few special cases which were examined by the European Court for Human Rights. In the pilot case Atanasiu, which was pronounced against Romania, the European Court for Human Rights analyzed the following relevant statistic data for the period up to 2010, data which we have been given by the representative of the Romanian government. Part of this data were informed by the statistics of the National Authority for Retribution of Property in what concerns Law number 10 of 2001. For the local authorities, we have registered 220 requests, 119,000 files were analyzed, and 56,000 cases were proposed for being granted with retributions. 46,700 files were constituted in accordance with Law number 10 of 2001, and 375 files were constituted in accordance with Ordinance 83 of 99 and Ordinance 94 of 2000. We have sent them to the Central Commission which issued over 10,000 titles of retribution. The other files are ongoing for a solution in what concerns Law 18 of 1991 and Law 1 of 2000 regarding the land, the agricultural land, in accordance with partial estimation regarding the 8 out of 41 counties of Romania. The local authorities were given almost 1,500 million requirements for retribution, and over 55,000 cases which were provided in accordance with these laws were already sent to the Central Commission which have kept 21,000 of these files and have issued only 10,200 retribution titles. All the other files that I have spoken about are ongoing and are being analyzed by the authorities that I have mentioned to you earlier. In regards to the requests for retributing the lands or retribution in accordance to Law 247 of 2005, over 800,000 requests were registered with the local authorities, out of which only 172,000 were accepted as retribution requests. Out of the total beneficiaries of retribution titles, 15,000 chose to receive part of the amounts as cash, for a total quantum of 2 billion lei, around 400 million euros. 3,850 persons have received payments for 350 million lei, almost 80 million euros. In December 2005, the shares of the Proprietatea Fund are not listed with the stock exchange. In 2007, the Proprietatea Fund, ever since 2007, the Proprietatea Fund has been paying its shareholders, and since March 2008, the shares for the Proprietatea Fund is allowed based on direct transactions controlled by the Stock Exchange Regulating Authority. Since May 2010, we have registered 250 shares that were transferred. The Proprietatea Fund in June 4, 2010 has as main shareholder the Ministry of Public Finances, having 56% of the fund's shares. It has 103 shareholders, which are natural persons. In accordance to an estimation given by the government, the amount which is necessary for the payment of the retributions provided by the laws on retributions have the level of 21 billion euros. In regards to this exposure, we can see the image of a legislative and judicial system which is overwhelmed by the amount, the quantum of the regulations which are not included in a stable legislative body and within a under-level judicial systems in what concerns the number of judges, as well as overwhelmed from the perspective of the activity, from the lack of resources and defiance of the persons in what concerns the Public Act.
Our next speaker, and last but not least, Mona, I ask the Romanian translator to speak in your microphone because it's really low and there are some difficulty in the translation. The next speaker is Madam Mona Pifniceru, judge, member of the Council of Magistrature, professor to Iași University and the former president of Romanian Association of Magistrates. You have the floor.
My colleague Marius Tudose presented the first part of the paper, and although this was a bit tiring and highly technical, I want to refer to two essential things in order to continue my presentation. The first one is this phenomena of the juridialization, which means a legislative boom of legal documents that was reflected in this phenomena of the decision issued by the European Court for Human Rights, who gives this right, who turned this right into an expectance expectation, and this goes for Law 18 on denying delayed justice. These are conditional eventualities falling upon the Romanian state. The other phenomena is that of juridization, infringing the part of courts. Huge number of claims filed by citizens. And all these laws have a very highly contentious characteristic. All these phenomena should be grouped around the right that all citizens have to get a ruling within a reasonable time period. This is a decision of the, this is one of the human rights that of speeding up the procedures so that the rights will not turn into non-rights, or the value subject to justice will not lose its substance. In the vision of the European Court of Human Rights, we have some things that ask for increased diligences, for instance, the life of a person, family life, or salary rights that people should receive, professional status of some individuals, and all these cases, for all these cases, there is a risk for a person to lose the rights. This obligation to speed up the ruling of cases falls upon the state. The consequence of this is the fact that the European Court of Human Rights, and I will just say another phrase in order to introduce you in this atmosphere that is a compulsory one, the case law atmosphere that should be used in the entire Europe. And I'm sorry, but I have a professional background, a teaching background. So the European Court of Human Rights turned this into an infringement of the principle of efficiency of the act of justice. Then the European Court of Human Rights rendered the disposition 13 an autonomous one, so that if states did not put at that person's disposal methods to complain against the decision, have other ways of complaining against those. At the same time, the European Court offers the person seeking justice the possibility to go to Strasbourg, and if the process is delayed, has been on the docket for a long period of time, and the party thinks that the process, the trial, has been delayed for too long without a correct ground for this. Now, what is the status of the Romanian legal system when it comes to these prerequisites to rule the cases in a short period of time? Since the European Court, when deeming a reasonable time frame, thought that ruled that in many cases the time frame have been delayed, since the court eliminated economic circumstances such as the economic crisis or the disturbing political processes that could justify an undue load on jurisdictions, we should see what are the particular cases specific for the Romanian system, and I listed them. I listed the reasons for delaying onto various categories. The first category is that of structural cases that caused undue delays or unjustified delays in ruling some of the cases. There was a government ordinance issued in 2003, according to which all repeat second appeals were redirected to the High Court of Cassation and Justice. This was done within 2 years. The High Court of Cassation and Justice was blocked. All the files went to a headquarters that was the size of a floor of this building. Consequently, in 2005, based on another emergency ordinance, the files were sent back to the previous courts. And this process of relocating the files and changing the venue of the court from the Court of Appeal to the High Court of Cassation and Justice and back was delayed for several years, and in this way the course of justice in terms of appeals was disrupted. All this process was done based on an administrative procedure, and the only operations that took place at that time was to relocate them from one headquarter to another location. So this was a serious case for disrupting the course of justice when it came to ruling and trialing the cases. And this is reflected in the decision issued by the European Court for Human Rights. Another cause is Emergency Ordinance 247 from 2000, according to which the burglary offense was judging the burglary was relocated, was changed from one court of justice to another. But 2 years later, it was sent back to the instance that was trying the predicate offense. And this was another source for delays in trialing cases. Another structural cause, apart from legal amendments that change the venue of the courts, is the changes in the procedure during the period when the case is trialed. There is a long list of government ordinances for paying some amounts that are stated in the execution titles for as salary rights due to state employees who, based on successive government ordinances, have been suspended, have not been enforced, despite the fact that initially these were won before the courts. So this also incurs a final decision issued by the court that covers also foreclosures, and which is actually a final step in the view of all courts, even of the European Court. Well, all these rights have been suspended. Apart from this, we also have the situation of Law 10 on new constructions and Law 18 on agricultural land. In both laws, while the cases were trialed, the procedures were changed. The procedures related to deadlines and so on. So all those involved in these kind of cases had to go through a legal through all these legal problems in order to see that their rights were met, not within a reasonable framework according to Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights. But their rights haven't been solved, not even now, when we are speaking of this law. Another cause, another group of causes, or cause, let's say, that that was a source of delays in the legal proceeding is Article 98 of the law issued by the Constitutional Court, according to which, while a case is trialed before the court, when invoking the non-constitutionality exception, the case would be suspended on the docket of the court. Consequently, those seeking justice, irrespective of the cases, would appeal to these non-constitutionality exceptions once, twice, 10 times, and thus successively the time of the process, the entire legal process, would be extended, hugely extended. Because and in this way, the statute of limitation would be triggered. This is something that was remedied by Law 177 from 2010.
Another category of causes which make it impossible for Article 6, Paragraph 1 regarding the procedures, which can have a control, or they can be prescription, they can be prescribed. Although we have a procedure which is constant, and it does not have any defaults, we come back to the fact that the court decision is a process of the balanced trial, because this execution, this enforcement needs to be complete in order to conclude the process cycle, in order to have the right in a patrimony or in a benefit, or the Romanian state does not want to comply with the court decisions, taking into account the salaries of the employees of the state. This has been going on for the past years. It was started with the personnel from the judicial system. There was a decision of the Constitutional Court which would acknowledge the non-constitutionality of the process, that of the debitor choosing when, where, and how it will enforce this decision. We have right now a law regarding and a more extended regulational object for the judicial employees, as well as for the other social categories. At present, the law is being analyzed by the Constitutional Court. I need to give two examples regarding the jurisprudence for the states, regarding the states that shall enforce, because the European Court states that the person does not need to try to enforce these they are the debitors for the Romanian state. They should enforce the actions for which they were obliged. Knowing this and being in the situation of deciding this, the person does not need to request the mandatory enforcement. The mandatory enforcement title determines the obligation for the result from the state. I don't want to focus too much on the last ordinance, yet imagining that 8 years for not enforcing some salary rights represents a normal term in the condition in which we speak about, the European Court speaks about the salary rights for the government. In another court case, from mediation, from conciliation. It recognized with the European Court that it is rather excessive to execute the decision, to enforce the decision, or not to execute the decision in 4, 6, 8 years. And it actually promised that it will pay the salary rights. We have some normative actions that give some reasoning for accelerating the judicial procedures. We can speak about the 4 small reforms. Although it has limited effects, limited results, without being able to have a line for the entire judicial system, it has amended in a way or another some sectors by making possible the stimulation of that particular area. I'm thinking about citing the parties for the direct signature, for the personal signature. And the party is presumed as being informed regarding the date, the contraventions with a minimum regulation object, which will be judged in the first and in the last instance by the judges. I'm also thinking about the fact that we have taken away some possibilities of appealing or requesting clarifications or using other means of appeal other than those that are already being regulated or are being regulated in the civil code. I'm also thinking about appeals. The Court for Human Rights has accused the Romanian judicial system for sending the cases from one court to another, as it is regulated after the small reform of the appeal and the reappeals. These courts cannot send them back to the court that has annulled the decision for the trial without any procedure, or for giving a decision regarding the substance. We are in a situation in which everybody would blame the other party without having an actual trial.
There are other beneficial issues such as the criminal recognition and others that were meant to ensure a legal environment that was faster. Now let's draw some conclusions on these two phenomena. So the juridicization and judiciarization have a deep impact on the legal system, with direct consequences on the deed of justice. And here we have a pilot decision ruled against Romania, according to which the high number of infringements in Article 6 of Paragraph 1 of the Convention and Article 1 of the Protocol to the Convention, as well as other similar issues that could, in the future, source room for additional rulings, are threats to the efficiency, to the future of efficiency of the control body created based on the convention. In this way, the Romanian government state was forced to take some measures to ensure the safeguarding of patrimonial rights, and the retribution mechanism was rendered more efficient. It is the right of every citizen to have a ruling within a reasonable time frame. This right is enforced by the European Convention for Human Rights, and the national law systems failed to comply with the European standards. The juridicization and judiciarization are two phenomena that mean pathological deviance from the state of law, from the rule of law, and from a normal, proper functioning of the legal system. The reports that citizens have with public authorities, with the society, the existence of subjective rights, and the fact that the state belongs to some regional systems are causes, are grounds for this juridicization and judiciarization that make the entire process more complex and more difficult when it comes to how they should work and be organized. It is without any doubt that the impact of all these phenomena goes to all states, because states will have to restructure their judicial grounds without losing sight of their of the rationale they had when they set them up, those of ensuring and following the standards, human rights standards. Given these circumstances, the right to have a ruling within a reasonable time frame is followed from time to time because of this boom of legal documents that, volens nolens, will impact the efficiency of this legal system. But unless we have intrinsic legal measures, the legal system will still be encumbered by the consequences of a judiciarization that has become irreversible.
Have 15 minutes for debate, and after we have a cocktail. If you have a question for our speaker, please.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Radu Butum. I am an assistant of a Romanian MEP who shares your commitment and concern to the state of justice in Romania and the European Union, Ms. Monica Macovei. I want to thank Mr. Alistar for the very coherent explanatory framework that he presented to us, and to Ms. Pivniceru for the very clear examples. I want to refer, though, to a case which doesn't quite fit, I believe, in this explanatory framework, and which is also very important and which was not mentioned. And I speak here about this anti-corruption online project, which presents some 30 cases of big corruption cases, right? There are important people in Romania, important politicians, and the problem with these cases, as most of us know in Romania, is that these cases are blocked in the national courts. Nothing happens there. And I can name a few. It's a former Prime Minister of Romania who has 3 cases pending. The oldest one is pending for more than 7 years, 1,820 days. There are cases of a former minister from the party that is in government, Monica Iacobrizzi, Dan Voiculescu, an important president of an important party in Romania, more than 1,000 days, Dinu Patriciu, an important politician and businessman, more than 2,000 days pending. Now, the worst part is that some of these cases are so old that they are already, the criminal deeds are already prescribed. I will name 4 names only: Savu, Mantog, Mitra, and Kopos, which benefited from this prescription for their corruption acts. Now, the Commission, through their monitorization and verification mechanism, points out that this might be the most critical situation in the justice system in Romania. I believe that 7 years not judging a case is not a matter of the lack of capacity, but rather a lack of willingness or a bad will or integrity, and in the last case, or eventually, that's a sign of corruption. Now, I want to ask a question to the members of the Superior Council. What does the Superior Council of the Magistracy do to curb this phenomenon in the Romanian justice that affects devastatingly the trust in the Romanian justice system? Have the magistrates responsible for these prescriptions have been so far penalized or bear any responsibility? Could you please name 3 concrete measures, or 5, that would be great, of this Superior Council, that the Superior Council took after the report, the verification report in July? And why is the next control of the Superior Council planned for February next year? That seems to be far away, the next council that they're going to effect on the Superior Court of Romania. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that if we have, yes, other question, we collect all the question and after we have the answer. Please, you have the floor.
I will speak in Romanian. My name is Stella Velichi. I'm an European citizen. I am a physicist and an IT person, and I will refer to an issue of a regional value regarding the retribution of agricultural lands. These lands exist, they have not disappeared. The real situation is that these agricultural lands were taken over after 1989 by the administrative heads, by the mayors, by the prefects with legal documents. Right now, the owners that have had the lands before the socialism have to wait for all the useless procedures and laws and anti-laws and anti-procedures. We have mayors that receive European funds, and instead of refurbishing a school from the village, they refurbish their house. We have prefects that have houses that are built in 3 months. They also have a swimming pool and a helipad. I would like to know, they also have restaurants and agricultural properties. I want to know the following. Where does the money come from for these properties? Why don't we analyze, first of all, on a regional level, these properties that were taken over by force? There is no kind of explanation. They were taken from the rightful owners that have had them before the socialist era. Why don't we collaborate between the justice system and between this anti-corruption institute of the European institutions for the European citizens? There is a second big problem of having legal documents on a regional level. We do not have any land registry book. The city hall will not, you cannot complain on a European level. My last question is, why are all these laws and anti-laws regarding the agricultural land, ordinances, anti-ordinances, why aren't they verified on a European level? Why these corruption cases are not forwarded on a European level? That is my question.
Other question? Please.
Thank you. I have a very personal case about the delay to obtain a judgment. Someone owes me about 100,000 euros. This is settled, but there is no way to get my money back. In the meantime, this person went to a judge with forged documents in emergency. Within a few weeks, I was sentenced to pay this person 50,000 euros. I had a seizure on my salary. I made an appeal. The appeal court of Brussels is so overwhelmed by various appeals that it would have taken, about 3 to 4 years before I could have a first meeting at the court. Finally, this court was linked to another case. This case was linked to another case against the same person. It took more than 18 months before the seizure on my salary was stopped. In the meantime, I am an official civil servant of the Commission. I had only a bit more than 1,000 euro left to live. I had to work overnight, even in the weekend during my holidays. I had to sell most of my personal belongings. And I think that a court of appeal that is not able to judge such a case in less than 2 years, but in this case it was référé, I don't know the word in English, sorry. I'm not very familiar with such vocabulary. And someone can obtain a judgment within a few days with forged documents. When going to the Court of Appeal, we discover other documents that proved that the first one were totally forged, and the appeal court refused to take these documents into account. But finally, after 18 months, and during these 18 months, I had to live below the poverty level. And I think that Belgium made a very big infringement to the human rights, because I could not have any help from the social system, because they said, you are a European Commission civil servant, you have no right to social help. And at the social service of the Commission, they say, oh, it's not of our business. You were sentenced to pay, there is nothing we can do. And in the meantime, I had no help, no public help, not from my employer, nor from the commune. There was no way to have a judgment within a reasonable time. And it's only thanks to my very close friends and relatives who gave me some money. If not, I would be a tramp, even though I'm a civil servant. And about the delay, the reasonable delay, as stated in the Convention of Human Rights, I think Belgium is totally guilty, let's say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question from the...
May I address in Romanian? It would be a technical question, and I would like to use the terms properly. Am văzut statistici.
I saw the impressive statistics that Mr. Badea Tudose presented. About 9 million files that have been solved so far. And you said that in the first 6 months of this year, you solved 1.3 files. This including non-contentious cases as well? Yes. Do you know how many of them are contentious cases? Sorry, he's not using the microphone. I think that about 200,000 files have been solved for non-contentious procedures. Can you estimate the average time frame for a file? Well, there are some courts that me and Mrs. Pivniceru coordinate, and we saw that the average time was 3 to 5 months for one procedural stage. Thank you. Welcome.
I took this privilege to Mr. Gatti. I know very well that Italian mafia is involved in Aeolian in South Italy, but they start to work in neighborhood country. do you have some information about the work of, I put brackets, work of Italian mafia in Romania? Because it's not only in this sphere of energy, Aeolian energy. There are other issues when they start to work with group of interest in my country.
Okay. Yeah, I've been quickly looking into the relationships between the two organized crime, and apparently the basis that that merge the Italian organized crime and the Romanian organized crime is apparently the construction field, as the construction of the infrastructure is someone that the Italian organized crime has been leading in terms of efficiency and in terms of taking the money and doing a bad job. But we found also another highway, the A3 in Romania. I don't remember exactly where does it come from and where it goes, but apparently there have been some suspect links between the construction companies involved and people in power of the Romanian government. I can't go further because I don't have any other data, but the few one that we have are suspicious, I gotta say. Another one is due to the proximity between Italy and Romania. Apparently, Romania is now a new hub for the people that have been targeted by law in Italy to go there and start again choosing Romania as a second home. So there have been many cases of former mafia bosses coming back and forth Italy and Romania. There is a tobacco scandal, I think, also. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. And so, you know, this is really frustrating for me because it seems that Italy is just able to export these kind of things, but believe me, it's not like that. It might be due to the fact that we are southern Mediterranean kind of population, so we share the same things. But yeah, there are definitely some links in that case between Italy and Romania.
Thank you. Victor?
I want to thank you for your question. Why I haven't mentioned anti-corruption online project, maybe because are so many initiatives in this area of anti-corruption, and in this initiative also, maybe you cannot mention all initiatives, and even in this one are not mentioned all important corruption cases, and sometimes it's hard to rely to a selection if it's not really balanced one. You know, we believe that anti-corruption message has to not be used as a political message. It's more a social message and rule of law message. Therefore, this initiative you have mentioned, which I congratulate for, because it's related to doing public awareness to create a critical mass for demanding integrity. That's clear because it's using electronic media. It's not presenting some cases we were looking for. For example, the abusive expenses done by National Integrity Agency, which were proved by Court of Auditors of Romania, and was also accepted by Court of Appeal of Bucharest and High Court of Justice when the National Integrity Agency contested the above-mentioned report. And that's kind of high-level corruption because it's in the middle of the anti-corruption movement from the state side, let's say, and other things. But yes, you are right, are so many cases which are in delay. I think here we need to have, and I fully agree, to have a strong assessment of the causes in order to design appropriate solutions to deal with. From our understanding related to those cases you mentioned, and there are many others, we can include also Nikolaichuk into it. We have three types of reasons. One, legislative changes. When was changed the profile of anti-corruption, General Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office into National Anti-Corruption Directorate, some competencies were changed. From very beginning, the law establishing anti-corruption prosecution in 2002 was anti-constitutional one. Therefore, lots of actions and procedural measures they took were demanded by court to be administrated by the new structure after putting the law in accordance with the constitution. Another important change was the law 247 from 2005, at the period where Mrs. McAvey was Minister of Justice, related to property and justice reform package, which was the first important reform of the government after 2004 elections, where some procedural things related to ways to report between National Anti-Corruption Directorate and General Prosecutor of Romania, and if it's implied the authority of the General Prosecutor of Romania as it was requested for former ministers and MPs and so on. Those kind of legislative impediments were very, very easily speculated by lawyers because it's their duty to do it. The second category of causes for those kind of cases, it's related to difficulty to prove and to correlate proofs in order to have a strong case. And here we have to look carefully to how the evidences are putting together in a system of proof, meaning legal phone call records, legal data transfer records with other material proofs. And third causes is some judges afraid to do their work. Sometimes because they know that anti-corruption in Romania was a political gun which was moved from one ruling coalition hand into another ruling coalition hand, they were, and I think it's not an excuse for a magistrate, but were cases when they were afraid to rule those cases, and therefore they speculate mistakes in creating file, and they just send it back to the prosecution. That's not an excuse, that it's subjective thing. And related to this, I think also have to understand if they have a real independence or not. If the powerful intelligence services in Romania have capacity to put pressure on magistrates' shoulders, if the ORNIS system, which is a system of certificating rights to have access to secret information and protection of secret information, as in any state, has some provisions related to contra-informative protection and supervision of those who are awarded with this certificate. That means base of selecting magistrates and so on, are so many causes which actually represent the weakness of the state. Because citizens are obliged to respect law, citizens and companies are paying taxes, and state has its duty to ensure social security and legal security, and that's not happened. That's my reply, without intention to start a debate right now. We can share some ideas during the informal discussions. That's my point related to this, and a very, very short comment related to Belgium. That's happened in other countries, including in Romania. I try to urge courts to solve one case of abusive investigation of one administrative body against me, and I couldn't succeed to do it, and that affect my interest in this February with a constitutional court decision related to me, because the process was too long. Yeah, according with standards, was established to be 6 months, and actually was postponed more than 2 years right now. But I think here European Union can create a mechanism of insurance for people who request access to justice in case of those kinds of delays. That's changing the burden of proof of good faith and create economic pressure. If governments has no money to finance judicial systems under judiciarizare și under new trends, under new trends, then they have to pay from public budget for those guarantees. It's economic balance here, because otherwise they will say we have not enough money for provide and create capacity. And therefore some independent judges are not paying for their mistakes, meaning to delay the processes too much. Maladministration is banished everywhere in public sector, with one exception: judiciary. We have ministers of justice in our governments. They have to be accountable. For Jesus Christ, we are paying taxes. It's our right. That's a very short comment to your point.
Thank you. Judge, you have to you want to react to this, please, and I have the last answer for the...
Well, I will try to be concise, and so a couple of things. First of all, and the mafia, the thing is quite complex. There's not only one Italian mafia, there are many kind of mafias. And as far as Romania is concerned, well, we should talk about many different channels, and it's also quite a complex phenomenon with the Sicilian mafia and then the one from Calabria. There has been a true development of the type of mafia that we have in Italy and all over Europe. But during my mandate at the OLAF, I noticed that there are really more than one mafia, and there are several agreements between different mafias. For example, the mafia of another country has to interact with the local mafia. It's like a joint venture between mafias when they want to operate in another country. And then second aspect, and I think that a good judicial system has to be well structured and has to give assurances. For example, to make a comparison, in the last 10 years, the French prosecutors have sanctioned more or less 100 magistrates in 10 years. The Italian one, well, they do 100 sanctions a year. So this is the difference. And many magistrates have been indicted. Some of them went to prison, the one that Ms. Alfano was talking about as well. So there has been a reaction. What about France? Well, France, it's quite complex. There is the discretionality of the penal law, and in several cases, I noticed in France, because of course it's a modern state, well, I noticed personally that they had taken files away from trials. They had given wrong hints. So they haven't been sanctioned, but they have been moved from one tribunal to the other. And then a few years later, they got imprisoned. So this to say that we really have to be proactive, and I think that the Italian magistrates are quite active. They are striving to get to the final aim of their mission. Thank you.
Am să încerc să vă dau eu un răspuns apropo de avatarul.
I will try to provide you with an answer in relation to what you said to the restitution. If someone is to take full responsibility for what has happened, and the presentation delivered by the judge was more than comprehensive because it provided us with a walk through the entire history of the process, I think it's the political class that should take full responsibility for what is happening, what is still happening in the restitution process.
Discussion, an informal discussion, because after that we have short conclusion, I invite you, all of you, to the cocktail who will be next door, near us. I want to thank all of you. Sorry.
I want to offer to answer one of the questions asked by someone in the room, because they were wanting to get an answer given by one of the members of the Superior Council of Magistracy. Well, one of the things I wanted to say is that as a judge, I have the obligation to have a reserve on some cases, on those cases that you mentioned. Those are cases that can be easily identified on the docket of the Court of Justice. Then it's a well-known fact that some cases are delayed on the docket of the High Court of Cassation and Justice. But looking back, the grounds, the reasons listed by Mrs. Pivniceru, and currently the legal amendments that I mentioned that have been used excessively and extensively, especially the use of the non-constitutionality right that deferred cases to the contentious court. Then, please do not disregard one thing. In all case files investigated by the National Anti-Corruption Direction, we had 2 prosecutors. And it's a very intense work. It's very difficult to collect all the evidence. We have 100 up to 150 witnesses. It's very difficult to make them appear before the court. Then, apart from this, we also have objective and subjective reasons for delaying all these case files. Each case file comes with its own history. What are the mechanisms? What has the Council done so far? Well, the Council is working on a plan of measurement. For instance, it's a plan for anti-corruption, independent of the one issued by the Ministry of Justice, which is the central authority in this field. What did the Council do? Well, ask for verifications conducted at the High Court of Cassation and Justice for all cases that were older than 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. It's true that in February we'll have to report on this mechanism, but these controls are being conducted currently because they have to cover the entire legal system. It's not only the High Court of Cassation and Justice ruling on cases of corruption. It depends on the jurisdiction or of the person indicted. So if we want to be correct and honest with ourselves, we will have to present the full picture. Otherwise, but we couldn't do it unless we present the findings in February. What have we done so far? What have we achieved so far? It's not just a presentation. We wanted to strengthen the ability of the legal inspection, just as the mechanism requires for. We brought new inspectors, we introduced harsher inspection criteria, and we are keen on providing a good working environment. We decided to relocate them because the 7 of them share the same office and offer them with proper conditions so that they can do their job properly. What have we done apart from this? All controls that should focus on the legal system should start with a moment when the claim filed by the citizen was registered. There are cases when the complaints or the moment when the claims were filed by some citizens, but they stayed within that court for 7 years, and by the time they got before the judge, the deeds had already the statute of limitation had already elapsed for those deeds. So I think that I could go on and on with the explanations for this, but one of the subjective reasons is the fact that, as for recently, the role of the High Court is that of drawing up some expertise documents. It's very difficult to find experts in some fields in Romania. In other words, legal practice far exceeds the specialization of our experts. You know just as well as I do that one expert, we had just one expert in issuing expertise for listening techniques. We no longer have him in Romania right now. It's needed to offer the defendant with the possibility to get access to all the evidence that has been collected against him. So from my point of view, the judges, the council, the state, the judges from the High Court of Cassation, all the legal amendments, well, all them should have all the proper conditions in order to do their job, so that we will eliminate case files that are delayed on the docket of the courts.
Regarding the inspection, we have decided it to be in January. We have acted in this manner so that we would have an extended control for all of the departments. Until then, we have taken measures for monitoring these corruption issues. I do not like this because 95% of the legal system in Romania is the civil case, and we focus on a special management. The judges from the higher court move to other courts because they do not have space in their quarters, and they judge in the Bucharest Tribunal or in other courts. So we have some priority for solving these causes, and they are well monitored. In January, we will have a more extended control for the other sections, departments as well, and probably this delay of the files will be adjusted. In what concerns the delay of the process that affects the patrimony of the citizen, I wanted to mention in my speech that the state, I don't know if Belgium has it or not, France for sure has this. France has regulated the defaults that the French state has to pay for the lack of functionality within its legal system. And these delays these repeated delays or the time interval when a case was not solved and it is a prejudice to the citizen have been solved through this means. It doesn't matter if the state has solved this or not. The article number 13 of the convention states that it has an appeal against its state for breaching the right, which consists of judgment for that specific situation. We will probably think in a more serious manner about this. In Romania, we need to institute a system for the responsibility of the state in regards to the legal system, as it correlates the right of the citizen, which has lost its right a long time, and secondly, it preserves the independency of the judge, which under hundreds of cases risks in not being able to prioritize in the best manner the case which should be judged. All the cases are important. You cannot state that some cases are more important than the others. In this context, many cases may be delayed because there is a huge number of cases in this judicial system, in this legal system for each judge. And the judge will also be summoned to these disciplinary actions, which can be applied for the delay of solving that particular case. Of course, if this delay is because of the judge. Thank you. Shortly, because I would like to support your point and your approach, and I would like to bring more to the table. We have so much corruption in Romania, and I want to see those files being solved, and I don't want to see that they are hidden. I want to see that the Romanian courts will not hide their files in accordance with the power. In these years are within this period for limitation prescription. We have the new codes, we have adopted them, we have adopting the calculation of the prescription limitations. I would like to solve these files which ring a bell in order to give the opportunity to the citizen and to the state paying it. I would like to avoid seeing this situation which put under the rug these cases with the Chamber of Deputies, with City Halls. I don't want to continue the list because I don't want to point fingers at anybody. But yes, this is the message. In Romania, we are hiding some corruption files with the courts. I would like to say, to conclude, by saying that in a few words, we have already overpassed our time frame for this conference. I would like to thank you for this because it means that the theme that we have approached, was a focus for you, and it is important to you. This is actually the first step that we would like to take, as we are trying to bring into the attention of the Parliament some themes related to managing justice in Europe. We understand the right of the state of regulating its own justice systems. We understand very clearly their respect towards the values, toward the national values, yet we believe that the European citizen has the right to have a joint standard. This means prescription limitations which will not lead to offshore situations, and I use offshore between quotation marks, which would be useful for some criminals. We have created these favorable situations by maintaining the European offshores, and European taxpayer is paying for the big cracks in the European banks. I would like to avoid having these offshore situations in order to avoid having justice. I believe that this is one of the most dangerous situations for the European cohesion. We are also preoccupied by other issues, not only those of prescription limitations, but also to the coherence of the reasonable term for trials. And if we would like to have a right management which is not corrupt, balanced, we need to respect the judges as well. Thank you very much for your speeches in this afternoon. We will also have other steps, and I believe that your contributions during this debate are very important. Thank you very much, and I would like to invite all of you to the cocktail that would take place in the neighboring room.